What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Michigan Muscle. Today I've got my 69 Mustang behind me. The vet's parked away right now. I've got some mods incoming for that. That's why you haven't seen any videos on it recently. But let's take a closer look at this Mustang. As you guys know, this car was sitting for a pretty good amount of time. The paint's really faded on it. And when I got it, it wasn't running that well. Now it runs pretty strong, as you saw. Karen heavily disapproved of it, but the main concern now is getting the car to a better looking state without necessarily painting it just yet. I wanted to try my hand at buffing it and paint correcting this and see if I could bring it back to somewhat of a former glory, even though, as you can see, there's a lot of chunks and other pieces missing out of the paint. But at least if it looks good, looks good, sounds good, it'll be a little bit more enjoyable to drive and show off just around town before it goes under a full restoration. So I figured I would try my hand at paint correcting the rest of this car and at least seeing if it'll make a difference, because this paint's really hazy and I've never actually done a full paint correction. Because you can see it's pretty rough. You can't even see a reflection in it. So I've got my buffing compound, my buffer. Let's go ahead and get the hood all wiped down and start buffing away. So I think the owner said he had the car repainted at one point, but it was probably 20 years ago, long time ago. You can see how bad the paint is. It's horrendous. Can't even see myself in it. So that'll be the difference. If we can look at the hood, this is where I wiped down with a little bit of detail spray. But if we can look at the hood after buffing it, you can see our reflection. That's how we know we've been successful. So fingers crossed, but I'm gonna mask off an area too so we can see the difference. This looks way better. This is a pretty good 50-50 comparison of how bad the oxidation on the paint was and how faded it was when we initially got the car. This is after a pretty heavy cutting compound on the paint. I don't know if the camera can actually pick it up. Oh, there it is. But these are actually all cracks and spider webs in the paint that are not going to be able to be removed. So instead of polishing, I'm just going to leave it as is after the cutting compound and call it a day, because this is probably as good as this paint's ever going to get before the car actually gets repainted. So this is just temporary to see what it could actually come out as. So let's go ahead and continue with the rest of the footage. So this is the car with the hood completely done. The results are okay. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of cracking and spider webbing in the paint. There's these deep etched in watermarks. So the paint's in really rough. It needs a repaint essentially. But I mean, going from this to this, you know, I think is a pretty decent improvement from where it started at. It'll make the car look a lot better from 10 feet. As you can already see, there's sunlight reflections and it looks a lot better. So I think once the whole car's done, you know, let's get a better look. Once the whole car is done, it'll really just set it off a lot nicer. right, guys, we got this side of the car done. I'm gonna flip it around. I'm gonna pull the car out in the sunlight, and hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier to do the buffing. We actually see the results in the sunlight too. So it's difficult to do it on that side because of the lift. There's not a lot of room to record either. So let's go ahead and fire this bad boy up and get that cold start and pull her on out. Here's the side we did out in daylight. You guys can see a before and after. The back still looks pretty rough. Okay guys, so it's not perfect obviously because I have a giant buffing pad, but this looks pretty sweet. Here's the final result of the oxidized paintwork in the 69 Mustang. You can see all the paint residue that came off this thing that's blown all over the driveway from when I was blowing out the pad. It's unreal how much paint came off this car. Only burned through a couple spots, but it looks good. Looks a lot deeper. Again, the back was kind of tough because I don't have a pad to get in here, and the car's gonna get repainted anyways, so I wasn't too worried about it. But this looks pretty good. Let's get out in the sunlight and see what it really looks like. Here she is out in the sunlight, freshly polished. Paint's still looking pretty bad. It looks a heck of a lot better than it did. That's for sure. Sounds good too. Guys, this is it for buffing the Mustang today. This is probably one of the last, if not the last, Mustang video you guys are going to see for this year before it starts getting cold. As you can see, it's probably one of the last nice days in Michigan we're going to have here. So I'll take the car out, rip around a little bit, have some fun, but aside from that, there's probably not going to be any other videos with it other than just cruising around, which I don't know if you guys necessarily even want to see, but it looks great. It's going to looks decent, at least before it gets all sanded down and gets its new color, all the body work done and everything. So I don't know if we're going to start that this year necessarily, or just engine work or what, but the car is going to be completely restored, as you know. So this is just a temporary fix. But if you guys like the video and like the transformation of the car from the oxidation to how it is now, like this video, give a comment below, and be sure to subscribe. See you on the next video.